a small, quiet town, far from the bright lights of the city, a young inventor named Elias worked alone in his tiny lab. He had spent years building something no one else could imagine, something the world would later either admire or laugh. And Elias's prototype was strange, made of shining metal and glowing wires, moving in ways that seemed impossible, but the world did not see the potential, only the unusual, the risky, and the unknown. Every day, neighbors and townspeople came by to mock him. "Why do you waste your time?" they would ask. "You will never succeed. You will only fail." Their laughter filled the streets. But Elias paid little attention. He believed in his invention, more than he believed in the people around him. In the lab, the prototype hummed softly, its lights blinking as if it were alive. Elias watched it carefully, adjusting small parts, tightening screws, and writing notes in his worn-out notebook. He whispered to himself, "One day, they will see. They will understand." But, deep down, he also wondered if maybe the world was right, if maybe he was too foolish to dream so big. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, a loud knock echoed at the lab door. Elias opened it cautiously, and to his surprise, two men in official uniforms stood there. They introduced themselves as representatives from the government. "We have been watching your work," one of them said, "and we have a special assignment for you." Elias's heart skipped a beat, hope and fear mixing inside him. The men explained that they needed his prototype for a secret project. They could see its potential, something the rest of the world could not. But there was a strange condition, something Elias did not expect. As a reward for his work, they would give him access to a prisoner, a human being, someone trapped and controlled by the government. Elias was confused and uneasy. Why would they give him a prisoner instead of money, fame, or recognition? That night, he could not sleep. Thinking about the prisoner and what it might mean, he imagined a dark room, a scared and silent figure, waiting for someone to care. A sense of responsibility weighed on him, heavier than any tool or machine in his lab. The prototype's soft hum seemed louder than usual, almost like it was aware of the coming change. Elias realized that his work was no longer just about invention. It was about life, about freedom, about making a difference that mattered. The next morning, Elias packed his tools carefully, preparing for the journey the government had requested. He knew the world outside would still mock him, still call him a fool, but now, he had something more important than their words. He had a chance to prove that even a mocked inventor could change the life of another human being, and perhaps, in the process, change the world too. As he stepped out of his small lab and into the unknown, he glanced back at his prototype. Its blinking lights seemed to shine brighter than ever. It was ready, and so was he. The journey had begun, and Elias had no idea just how much his life found the life of the prisoner would change. Little did he know, the world that mocked him would soon witness a courage they could never imagine, and the story of the inventor and the captive was about to unfold in ways no one could predict. Elias arrived at the secret facility under the cover of night. The building was tall and cold, with bright lights that made the shadows sharper. Inside, the air smelled of metal and fear, and the faint hum of machines echoed through the halls. He was led by two guards down long corridors until they stopped in front of a heavy metal door. "This is her," one guard said, unlocking the chains that kept the door shut. Elias's heart pounded as he opened it slowly. Inside, sitting on a small bench, was a young woman. Her hands chained, her head down, she looked up briefly, her eyes wide and filled with fear. Her hair was messy, her clothes torn, and her lips pressed tightly together. She did not speak, she did not move, and she seemed almost invisible. Elias stepped forward cautiously, trying not to startle her. "I'm Elias," he said softly. "I'm here to help you." She did not respond, only stared, and her eyes seemed to question whether he was friend or enemy. Days passed as Elias worked with the woman, who would not give her name. He brought her food, water, and blankets, and slowly, she began to trust him. He learned that she had been taken for a crime she did not commit, punished unfairly, and kept in isolation. Her story was painful, and Elias felt anger rise in him. How could the world allow such cruelty? He promised himself that he would not let her suffer any longer. While they spent time together, Elias noticed something unusual about her. She seemed smart, quick, and capable. Even in her silence, she understood more than she let on. He began to realize that saving her was not just about releasing her from chains. It was about giving her a life she had never known. a life full of choices and freedom, but danger was never far away. The facility was guarded by people who watched every move, and cameras were everywhere. One night, Elias noticed a strange signal on his portable device. Someone, or something, was monitoring them outside the facility. He could not tell if it was government agents, bounty hunters, or something worse. The fear in the woman's eyes grew as he explained that they might be watched. "I will protect you," he said firmly. "I will not let them hurt you." She looked at him for the first time, and though she did not speak, her eyes held a glimmer of hope. Elias also discovered that the prototype he had built could help them. Its lights and mechanisms could unlock doors, disable cameras, and even hide them temporarily, but using it was risky, and one mistake could ruin everything. He worked late into the night, planning, calculating, and preparing. The woman watched him silently, sometimes helping without words, and he began to see that they made a strong team. Even without speaking, they began to trust each other, and slowly, a bond started to form. Fragile but real. As the night grew darker, Elias looked at the woman and realized that the real challenge was just beginning. Freeing her from the chains was only the first step. They would have to escape the facility, avoid the guards, and survive the world outside. But for the first time, Elias felt something stronger than fear or doubt. He felt determination, courage, and a strange connection with the captive who had now become more than just a mission. The journey ahead was dangerous, but together they might just succeed. And somewhere deep in the shadows, the world waited, unaware that a story of bravery, trust, and change was about to unfold. Elias and the woman spent their days quietly in the dim light of the facility. He still did not know her name, and she still said nothing, but he could feel her intelligence and strength. Even in silence, each day, he studied the facility's layout, noting the guards' routines, the cameras, and the alarms. He began to create a plan, a way to escape without being caught. The woman watched him carefully, her eyes following every movement. Sometimes, she would point to something, or shake her head, as if she understood more than he thought. Elias began to realize that she was not just a prisoner. She had skills, knowledge, and instincts that could help him. He whispered to himself, "We can do this together." But planning was not easy, and danger was always close. The first challenge was the guards, who walked in predictable patterns, but were strong and alert. Elias timed every step, every turn. Imagining the path they would take, he tested the prototype in secret, making small adjustments. Its blinking lights and moving parts could create distractions, unlock doors, and even jam the cameras temporarily. But if it failed, there would be no second chance. As night fell, he decided to test part of the plan. He moved quietly through the halls, and the woman followed, silent and careful. When they reached a locked door, Elias activated the prototype. A soft hum filled the room, and the door clicked open. The woman's eyes widened in surprise, and for the first time, she gave a small nod. It was not trust yet, but it was a beginning. But danger was not far away. From the shadows, Elias noticed a guard approaching, faster than usual. His heart raced, and he quickly hid in a corner. The woman froze beside him, fear in her eyes. The guard passed, unaware of them, and Elias exhaled slowly. He realized that one mistake could ruin everything, and that fear was now part of their plan, not just an obstacle. Over the next few days, they refined the plan, learning from mistakes. Elias found small weaknesses in the facility, places where the cameras didn't reach, doors that could be unlocked quickly, and guards who were careless. The woman began to help more, signaling when it was safe to move, pointing out hidden dangers, and even helping Elias adjust the prototype. Slowly, a bond formed between them, not with words, but with trust and teamwork. Elias felt a strange sense of hope. He had never felt this connected to anyone before. But the final challenge loomed larger than ever. To escape, they would have to cross the main security hall, full of guards, cameras, and sensors. It was a risk unlike anything they had faced, and failure meant capture, punishment, or worse. Elias looked at the woman and said quietly, "Are you ready?" She did not answer with words, but her determined gaze was enough. Together, they would face the danger, and only courage, skill, and trust could carry them through. The night before the escape, Elias worked tirelessly, adjusting the prototype, memorizing every step, and preparing for any unexpected problem. He could feel the tension building, like a storm ready to break. The woman sat beside him, silent but alert, ready to act at the right moment. And in that quiet, dangerous moment, Elias knew one thing clearly. They were no longer just an inventor and a captive. They were a team, and their lives depended on each other. Tomorrow, the dangerous plan would begin, and nothing would ever be the same again. The night was dark, and the facility was quiet. Elias checked the prototype one last time, its lights blinking softly in the dim room. He looked at the woman and whispered, "Tonight, we leave." She nodded slightly, her eyes showing a mix of fear and determination. There was no turning back now. They moved carefully through the corridors. Elias led the way, avoiding cameras and hiding in the shadows. The woman followed silently, her steps light but steady. Every corner held danger. Every hallway could have a guard waiting. Their hearts raced, but they could not stop. When they reached the first locked door, Elias activated the prototype. It hummed softly, and the door clicked open. The woman stepped through first this time, showing her growing trust. They continued slowly, inching toward the main security hall, the most dangerous part of the facility. Elias's mind raced with every possible problem that could happen. One mistake could ruin everything. As they entered the hall, alarms suddenly blinked. A guard had spotted something, and the chase began. Elias grabbed the woman's hand, pulling her behind a stack of crates. They waited, hearts pounding, as the guards shouted and ran past them. The prototype flashed bright lights, creating shadows and confusion. It was their only chance to escape. They ran through the hall, dodging guards and jumping over obstacles. The woman proved to be quick and clever, anticipating dangers Elias had not seen. Together, they moved like one, trusting each other completely. The guards were close, their voices loud in the dark. Elias knew they had only one chance to make it out. Finally, they reached the outer doors. They exit to freedom. Elias used the prototype one last time to unlock the heavy metal doors. They pushed them open and stepped into the cool night air. For a moment, it felt like they were safe, but the danger was not over. As they ran through the shadows outside, a helicopter appeared above. Lights scanned the ground, searching for them. Elias and the woman ducked behind rocks and trees, moving silently but quickly. Every second counted, and every sound could betray them. The woman's eyes shone with fear, but also with trust in Elias. He whispered, "Almost there. Keep moving." They finally reached a small, hidden vehicle Elias had prepared. Its engine was quiet, its lights dimmed. Perfect for escape. They got in, and Elias drove slowly, careful not to attract attention. The facility shrank behind them, its guards, cameras, and alarms left in the distance. For the first time, they felt a moment of relief. As they moved farther away, the woman finally spoke her name. "Lyra," she said softly, her voice trembling but clear. Elias smiled, relieved to hear her speak. "Welcome to freedom, Lyra," he said. In that moment, something changed between them. No longer inventor and captive, they were equals, partners, and allies. The escape was not just about leaving the facility, it was about starting a new life, together, in a world that had once mocked them both. But Elias knew the journey was far from over. The world outside was still dangerous, still full of challenges, yet for the first time, hope filled their hearts. They had faced danger, fear, and uncertainty, and together, they had survived. Tomorrow, the real adventure would begin, but tonight, they had escaped, and that was victory enough. The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting soft light on the land ahead. Elias and Lyra had driven far from the facility, leaving danger behind. For the first time in weeks, they could breathe without fear. The night of escape was over, but their journey was only beginning. They stopped by a quiet river, the water sparkling in the early morning. Lyra sat down, her hands finally free from chains. She looked at Elias, a mixture of relief and wonder in her eyes. "I never thought I would be free again," she said softly. Elias smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known. "Freedom is just the first step," he replied. "Now we can build something new, together, over the next few days." They found shelter in a small abandoned cabin. Elias worked on improving the prototype, making it safer and stronger. Lyra helped him, learning quickly how it worked. Together, they repaired and upgraded it, preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. It was more than just a machine now. It was a symbol of hope, courage, and trust as they worked. They shared their stories, slowly opening up to each other. Elias told Lyra about the mocking world that had rejected him, about the long nights in his lab, the failures, and the hope that never died. Lyra spoke of her life in captivity, of fear and loss, and of the small dreams she had held on to. With every story, their bond grew stronger. They were no longer alone, no longer prisoners of the past. Together, they could face the world, no matter how cruel or unfair it had been. One evening, as the sun set, Elias and Lyra watched the sky turn orange and pink. They realized that the world outside was vast, full of possibilities and dangers, but they were ready. For the first time, they felt the power to shape their own destiny. Elias looked at Lyra and said, "We were mocked, and we were trapped, but we are free now." Lyra smiled, her eyes shining, "And we will make our own path." The days that followed were full of learning, discovery, and preparation. They traveled through forests, mountains, and abandoned cities. They helped those in need, shared knowledge, and used the prototype to improve lives wherever they went. The world had once laughed at Elias, and it had punished Lyra, but now, together, they were changing it, one small victory at a time. The prototype, once mocked, had become a tool for hope and justice. As they reached the edge of a wide valley, Elias and Lyra paused. They looked back at the path they had traveled, at the dangers they had survived, and then they looked forward, at the endless horizon. A new beginning awaited them, full of adventure, courage, and possibilities. Elias knew that no matter what the world said, no matter what challenges came, they had each other, and together they could face anything. From laughter and mockery to freedom and hope, their journey had just begun. And the story of the inventor and the captive, now partners and heroes, would inspire others to believe in courage, trust, and the power of a second chance.